For more content and training on telling personal story, go to ramiro.me/show. Story Legacy at ramiro.me, a show for people who want to tell their story, make an impact, and leave a legacy. Personal stories from people just like you who have gone through tough shit and came up with a story to tell. I am Ramiro, creator of Story Legacy, your story guide. And today on the show, we have from Costa Rica, Mike Wolf.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, that's quite the intro. Good to see you. Wow.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, great to see you. So one thing before we start, one thing how I introduce guests is kind of where they're based at, but you're kind of based all over the world. So, like, do I introduce you as well? Right now, you're tuning in from Costa Rica, and probably we'll get into all your travel adventures. But how I like to start the show is with one of these questions. Like, one, and you choose one to answer. One, what has been the biggest challenge you faced in life? Because I believe that's where we get the real nuggets and life wisdom. Or second, you can answer like what has been one of the biggest, greatest, most uh, impactful lessons you've learned in life, and then we kind of get into the story. So you choose whichever resonates more with you.
Yeah, well, I think they both tie in pretty well together, and I can probably answer both of them in one story. So I think, and there's so many challenges and so many lessons along the way. It's very difficult sometimes to pick the most impactful one. But I think if I had to pick one, when I was young, my parents always brought me up. My mother got divorced when I was 2, and my biological father was kind of a deadbeat dad. Never sent any money, never spent any time with us. And my mother was determined to make sure that I did not turn out to be anything like my dad. And I'm glad to say I don't think I am. But she always taught me, Mike, you're the guy, you're the male. You've got to be the provider. You got to go out and work hard. Make sure there's always food on the table. You take care of your family, and that's great. That's really obviously, great way to be brought up. However, I think I took it a little bit too much to heart, and I became a workaholic for many, many years. And, there were times where I was so busy chasing money, and I was good at it. I was making, I got really good at making money, but it was at the expense of my health, at the expense of my relationships, because I think that was always in my subconscious, in the back of my mind. You got to go and provide, put food on the table. And so I got, like I said, really good at the money part, but there were times. My daughter's 26 now, but I can tell you back in my workaholic days. Oh, I'm in a hotel. Of course, when I'm in the middle of a live broadcast, somebody's going to call. So let me unplug this. This is actually my biggest challenge. I should have unplugged it before.
No worries, relax, Mike. This is the fun thing of a live production. You get a phone call,
There we go.
middle of sharing.
I actually unplugged it from the one sec. Okay, they've
Yeah.
given up on. They've given up.
All right.
Yeah. So anyway, my daughter's 26 now. When she was younger, there were lots of days where I would leave home. It would be dark outside. She'd still be asleep. I'd come home many, many, many hours later. It would be dark out. She'd be asleep. And I missed entire days with her. And I did what my mother told me. And there was always food on the table. We had a nice big house. We had all the toys. And it felt pretty empty. And I still was chasing money. And then I'm happy to say that I went from workaholic to playaholic. And now I've got 2 grandkids. I can spend lots of time with them. And my daughter still loves me. We still had fun. I don't want to make it sound like I was never there, but in hindsight, I could have done things a lot differently and spent a lot more time. And I think that was, when I look back, the thing that was most avoidable. Had I been, I'll put it this way: what I'm teaching my daughter and my grandkids is to not work hard, work smart. And anyway, my mother taught me with what she knew, and that was great. And now I'm teaching my family what I know, and I think that will serve them really well.
Beautiful. All right. So, wow, Mike. So you're 2 years old. Your mom gets divorced, and she goes, "Mike." Probably the first word she said, "Mike, you are the male. You have to be the provider of the family." At 2 years old, basically. Dang it, bro. Wow. Okay. Cool. So play, work smart, and not
Work
be
smart, not hard. Work smart, not hard.
not hard.
That's what I
Yeah.
teach. My mother taught work hard, and that's great advice. That's what most people have to do. It's like if you want to make more money, you trade more time for hour. You trade more hours for money, and that's how allegedly you have more in the bank account. And at least in theory, and I can tell you in practice that if you work smart, and by working smart, I mean, for example, creating passive income. Which means doing something one time, getting paid for it over and over and over again. You'll make a lot more money, and also having a team delegating. When you work smart, you're gonna. It's ironic. As you mentioned, I'm in Costa Rica right now. I'm actually a Canadian living in Costa Rica, at least for now, but I'm a nomad. And while I'm traveling, I make way more money than I ever used to make when I was waking up early and hitting the streets early in the morning and pounding the pavement looking for deals. I'm a real estate investor, by the way, so when I used to look for deals on my own, I'd find them and I'd find buyers and I'd find sellers and I'd find money and I'd put all that together. And it was very time consuming. But now I don't do any of that stuff. I've got teams that do that for me, and I'm making a lot more money while I'm not working than I ever used to make working really hard. So that's why I'm teaching my grandkids something a little different. And that's one of the messages I just love to share with people, because a lot of people that they live in that mindset where it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just work some overtime and I'll have some more money and I'll just work a little bit harder. Well, that's great until your health starts to give out and until your relationships fall apart and everything else around you might, we have bank accounts where we measure our success, at least some people think so, success and how much money we have in there. I wish we had a happiness account and a fulfillment account. We can measure these things in a relationship account and a health account where we could actually measure how well we're doing in all these areas, as opposed to just this very one-sided thing that most people focus on. We spent a lot of our lives focusing on it. And I'm not in any way saying that money is not important. It's extremely important. But how you earn that money is what makes all the difference in what the rest of your life looks like.
I love that. Okay, a few things now. But you know that we can create and have a happiness and fulfillment account simply by being aware of it and sitting down and reflecting on it, giving ourselves a score today. Like in the past week, how is my happiness levels rated from 0 to 10 or 0 to 100? And that way to to measure it and be mindful of that. So I love that, to have a happiness or fulfillment account instead of just a bank account. And here I want to dive a little bit deeper on it, because when a lot of people who are stressed, have money problems, or they don't even have money problems, they just, because they're providing, they have all their needs met, and they still feel that lack, that not enough, that wanting more. Oh, I wish I had more so I can buy that, then I'll be happy. And you touched upon that, because I know people, multimillionaires, who are still not happy when they were in debt. They were not happy. They had that lack, and then they went, all right, I'm gonna make a bunch of money, and they did, and and now they're going, what the fuck is wrong with me? I'm still miserable. I'm still depressed. It doesn't fulfill me, right? So when was it for you, that transition from, what happened? What was that? What made that shift for you from being a workaholic to a playaholic, where you got more fulfilled in life?
There were a few really key pivotal moments in my life. One of them was, I like I said, I got fairly successful in the money department. My now ex-wife was pretty upset though, because she got to live in a big house and had all the toys, but she didn't have me there. I was out earning the money, and I decided at one point, you know what, I've always wanted to travel. So we actually put all our stuff in storage, and we took my daughter, who back then was grade 2. we took her out of school, we homeschooled her and traveled around the world for 2 years. And while I was doing that, sometimes when you get away from, so you can't see the forest from the trees, that saying. So sometimes when you're doing something every day, you don't see any other way. You just think, this is what I do. My job or my career defines me, and this is what I do. But when you get away from it, and sometimes when you're far, far away and you're looking back on things, you sometimes see it through a different lens. And so while I was traveling, one of the experiences I had, I remember I was in Thailand, and I had somebody looking after my business while I was traveling. And that was the first time I ever really delegated. But anyway, I remember I was trying to call him, and I'm really dating myself, from a payphone using a calling card. You probably don't even know what that is, but don't worry about it. I'll explain it later. But yeah, I was trying to make a call from a payphone, and my calling card was not working. And this taxi driver was watching me, getting kind of frustrated. And he said, no, that doesn't work. And then he actually he took me in his cab, drove me to a 7-Eleven store, helped me get the right calling card, drove me back to the payphone, and he wouldn't take any money. I was trying to, not only, I wanted to give him this big tip, he wouldn't even take cab fare, let alone the tip. And to me, that was like the strangest thing, being a capitalist and being a real estate investor. And I had traveled a little bit before that. And I know when you go to certain countries, there's super good service and they work really hard, but they expect a tip. And this guy wouldn't even take the cab fare, and he was just smiling and happy, and just because he got to help me, that felt good for him. And that was kind of a relatively foreign concept to me at the time. So anyway, traveled around the world for 2 years, had experiences like that. When I came home, I didn't want all that material stuff. All that stuff was in the storage space. It was kind of meaningless to me at that point. It didn't have the same meaning as when I was acquiring it. It seemed so important at the time. One of the most therapeutic parts of my life was where I actually started to get rid of some of that stuff. And then I had one other really pivotal moment, and that's I remember I was this is going back to around 2008, 2009, maybe. Anyway, I was in Las Vegas, and I was doing a lot of foreclosures there. And I remember I was waiting to meet a friend. I was at the Encore Hotel, and I was sitting at the bar waiting for a friend to arrive. And a few seats down from me, there was this woman sitting there by herself, and she's waiting for her friend to arrive. And she came up to me and just started chatting. She goes, "Oh, where are you from?" I go, "Well, I'm Canadian, but I live in Vegas now because I'm flipping homes." She goes, "Oh, you're in real estate." I'm in real estate too. And I go, "Really? Tell me more." And she was from New Orleans. And she, I said, "You're from New Orleans and you're in real estate? What happened like after Katrina?" I've always enjoyed going to New Orleans. And I hadn't gone back after Katrina happened, which is a massive hurricane I think everybody knows that, but maybe you young folks don't know. But anyway, there's a massive, really bad hurricane. It decimated the city because it's below sea level. And she said, "Well, you know what? When the storm was approaching, I evacuated like I do for every storm. But normally, we just go on a holiday to Florida, we come back, everything's how we left it, and we just continue on with our life. This time I evacuated. When I came back, my home was under 20 feet of water and was for 3 weeks straight. And she was a realtor, and she had farmed this one neighborhood, meaning she knew, like, she was the most successful realtor in this one particular neighborhood. And that's the only neighborhood she really worked in. And she proceeded to tell me that all her customers, they were either dead, missing, their homes were trashed. And basically, she came back to not having a business at all. And not only, she was actually very lucky because her insurance company paid her for the damage to her house. She got to fix it up. A lot of other people weren't so lucky. A lot of insurance companies denied a lot of claims. That's a whole other episode. But she said, so I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, you know what? I was depressed for probably like a year after. And then by chance, I ran into this investor from Austin, Texas, who was visiting. And he said, 'Well, what if we fix these homes up? Do you think people would buy them?' And she goes, 'I don't know.' And so they did. They fixed one up and it sold. And then they fixed another one up and it sold. And so I said to her, I don't want to, certainly, I don't want to take anything off your plate, and I don't want to steal your project away from you. But what if we made this way bigger and helped a lot more people? And instead, the stuff that I do, I'll go raise the money, and I'll build some teams, and I'll do it as a give back project. and let's see how many people we can bring back to the neighborhood. And she said, no, you're not taking anything off my plate. That's awesome. I'd love to have all my old friends back. And so anyway, we did that. And that was a project that it was very tough because that, it was my teams doing most of the work. But as they go into the homes, we find like dead pets in the attic, and people's, their all their memories, their photos, like soggy wedding dresses, you name it. You can't even imagine some of the stuff we saw, some of the stories we heard from some of the people there. And that project, I had done many real estate projects where we've fixed up homes before, but in this case, these homes were a lot more trash than anything we've ever worked on, and it was a lot more work. And because it was a give back project, I didn't make any profit on it, and yet that's my favorite real estate project I've ever done. And so, it really taught me how important fulfillment is and giving back and making a difference. And after that, I was always looking, for more opportunities to help other people and to volunteer. And, it seems like selfless to other people. It seems like I'm just like the super nice guy, and I've become successful, so I'm selfless. But it's actually, in a way, it's not selfless or selfish, but it's a win-win because I get to help other people, but it makes me feel really good inside. And I just really believe in karma. And when I think back to that taxi driver, I think he did too. And he just felt, hey, if I go help somebody, something good is going to happen to me. And that's not only how I feel, I've experienced it over and over and over again. I give, and I don't give with any intention of receiving, but like whatever I give, it seems to come back tenfold. And I don't care if it does or not. I mean, I love that it does. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but even if it didn't, I would still keep doing it because once again, as you mentioned, if you measure it, you can have a happiness and a fulfillment account. Most people don't measure it. They don't pay attention to it. They focus on the money, for example, or they focus on whatever they're lacking at that time. And so that's how we met. I was actually volunteering at an event, and you were a student there. So once again, it led to me meeting an awesome human being, and but all kinds of great things happen when you spend your time giving. And so those are some of the pivotal moments that led me to where I am. And I see life so much differently now than I ever did back in the chasing money days and the working hard days. And having that extra time allows me to go and give back on a larger scale and spend more time with my grandkids, which that's my happiness account. When I'm with my grandkids, that fills up the account very, very quickly. And so I just measure things differently. I look at things differently. And my whole, take on life in general is really different. And that's the stuff I love to share because a lot of people, they don't get it until they've actually lived that. And so, I sometimes do retreats. I take people to different places, like here in Costa Rica, for example. I was here a few years ago with several other entrepreneurs, and we got to do some fun stuff like zip lining and hiking in the rainforest and all this fun stuff. But we did a give back component where we went to an orphanage in a town called La Fortuna, and there's an orphanage there, and we went and spent time with the kids and played with them and brought them gifts. And whenever I talked to anybody who was on that retreat, and we were teaching and speaking, and there was a lot and having fun, like I said, but the part we all remember the most is going to that orphanage and playing with the kids and having water balloon fights. And that's the stuff you remember. It's not, that's the stuff that I think has the most meaning in life. And yet we don't spend enough time doing it.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you for that. All right. A bunch of things that we can get into based on what you just shared. One thing I just want to put some emphasis on is how you sharing that, for example, that experience with that taxi driver who wouldn't even take the cab fare. And that was one of the first experiences you've had where people were just so giving and was such a big difference from your own belief system at the time, that and having multiple experiences like that, which led to rippled out into you later doing that project in New Orleans, which you, from a business perspective, you didn't make any profit, and yet that was the most favorite and most fulfilling project. Just seeing that, just want to make that connection and see how one little act of a kindness of a taxi driver can result in homes being built in, well, remodeled, built, recreated new community in New Orleans, just from that one little thing, right? That ripple effect. One question you mentioned that one of the most therapeutic things for you was getting rid of a lot of stuff, material stuff you accumulated, right? I am curious, and I have also gone like the minimalistic route, and I'm still in the process of getting down to like 2 suitcases. Now I'm like, I have like two
Yeah.
suitcases and like 2 or 3 boxes. But for you, being in a nomad, what are the, how do you travel lightly? How many suitcases do you have? What are the things that you bring along? How do you do that?
Yeah, so good question. I've got two. I've got one fairly big suitcase filled with clothing, toiletries, etc. Then I've got a second one, which is pretty much the largest carry-on that an airline will let you bring on their airplane as a carry-on. And then I have my business bag that I affectionately call my Apple Store on wheels because I've got every. I'm a bit of a fanatic when it comes to Apple products. So, but I also have clothing. I have more clothing up in Canada. I've got clothing in Los Angeles where I've got some friends. Wherever I tend to go frequently, I tend to store a little bit of clothing at some of my friends' places because when I get bored of having the same stuff every day, it's nice to dump out the suitcase and refill it with something different that you haven't worn in a while. But I don't really have that many. I used to have a really good book collection, and that's that's my iPhone. All my books are on Kindle, and I used to have a really good music collection. Well, that's Spotify, and so we live in really great times that for a lot of us, and we've obviously found this out during COVID. A lot of us can work without having to go to the office anymore, and I'm extra lucky because the stuff that I do, like I said, I'm semi-retired. I still teach people real estate investing, and that can be done over Zoom and anywhere with Wi-Fi. I can do it. So I actually travel around with a few extra goodies like a microphone and these ring lights that I'm using right now. So I don't, because sometimes hotels rooms can be a little dark. But it was actually not only therapeutic, but I don't think I could go ever, like even if I settle down, like when I'm 90 and maybe I can't travel as easily as I do now. And maybe at 90 I will. I hope I am. But let's say I'm not for some reason. Well, I even if I did settle down, I don't think that I would ever want to accumulate stuff again. Like that's kind of become meaningless to me. It's not back in the days. I think that was kind of how I rewarded myself. Okay, well, you've worked hard and you made lots of money, so you deserve a new fancy car. And you worked hard, you deserve a new TV or whatever. And I don't think I need to reward myself in that way because I feel rewarded in things I do every day now. And to me, those gadgets. And you mentioned it earlier, you meet people and no matter how much money they have, they're never happy. A lot of them don't practice gratitude for the amazing things they have. They just complain about things that they don't have. And, I've got a couple of my students are dentists, and one of them is selling his practice for around $5 million. And he's worried, well, how am I going to survive off of this? Most people, so a lot of people, as you start to make more money, your lifestyle increases and even though you have a lot of cash flow coming in from what you're doing. And with dentists, of course, you're working one-on-one. You can't do group dentistry. You can't do 10 people's mouths at once. So it's as soon as you stop working, that money stops coming in. And if you're living beyond your means, no matter how much your means are, you're in trouble. And so many people do that. I've met so many doctors, lawyers, and we look at these people as being very, very smart, and they are very smart in their field. But when it comes to money, a lot of them are not smart. And so I quite often have to help them. But one of the first things that I teach people is about gratitude. And every day you need to wake up and just have some sort of gratitude practice, I believe. So for me, it's just very simple. I just wake up and just think about the things that make me happy. And a lot of times, especially being in Costa Rica right now, I just look out the window and I look at the ocean and seeing the sunset at night. And I'm not often up for the sunrise. But in theory, if I was, and just the beauty. And anyway, a lot of people, when I say that, it's like, well, what do we have to be grateful for? We're in the middle of a pandemic and this is happening and I lost my job. And it's like, okay, one of the volunteer projects that I did, I went to a place called Vanuatu, which are these islands. They're kind of between Australia and New Zealand. And they had got hit by a hurricane. I seem to chase hurricanes and fix the after effects of hurricanes. But I went there with a bunch of entrepreneurs. We raised a bunch of money, brought a bunch of water filters, taught the people there how to use them so they'd have clean drinking water. When you go to a place that doesn't have clean drinking water and then you come home and magically water appears out of a tap, you turn something, clean water comes out. If you can't be grateful for that, then I don't know. And that's just one example. But the other thing I like to tell people is that your nightmare, your worst day you've ever had, is somebody else's dream day. There's other people on the planet that would kill to have your worst day. That would be their dream to get to that point. So we're very, very lucky. The fact that anybody watching this, the technology that we have access to. Imagine if there's a pandemic and we didn't have Netflix or Zoom. I can't even imagine what would have happened. It would have been ridiculous. I think there would have been a much bigger uproar about being locked down and stuff. And so anyway, I think we all have a lot to be grateful for no matter what is going on in our lives. And if you're not grateful for the things that you already have, in my opinion, the universe isn't going to give you more if you're not happy with what's already provided for you. And so every day, I think it's so important to just be grateful for where we're at. And if you're selling your business for $5 million, I know a lot of people would be pretty happy if they got to do that. But unfortunately, like I said, a lot of people at that point have bought the stuff that is beyond their means, even though by most people's standards, they've got a lot of money. But now they've got to keep working to support it and keep trading. Well, they don't have to keep trading their time, but that's all they know because that's how they got to this point.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So your perspective is so important, and what you said, basically paraphrasing, be grateful for what you already have. And that example of the dentist worrying how he's gonna live on 5 million, to me it's a little bit funny and ironic, and oh my god. So
Well,
definitely
but in all honesty, and we see a lot of people that, when I had lots of money, but I was, working lots of hours, and I come home and I had a beautiful home back on the golf course. I don't even play golf. I still don't play golf. And it was more, I wouldn't say it was kind of for ego, and I have a lot of my friends saying, wow, what a beautiful home. And you're so lucky. And look at your car. And to be honest, I go home and a lot of times I felt like something was missing. Like I wouldn't say depressed, but I just felt like, okay, well, I worked hard, just like I was told. I went and got a good education. I did all the things I was told. Now I've got all this. And I don't really feel any happier than when I was a starving university student. I had a lot of fun back then too. And it just felt like something was missing. I didn't know what. And that didn't really occur to me till later when I started to, I think, when I did that traveling, and that really expanded, how I saw the world and just meeting the different people, seeing different cultures. I learned so much by being away from all my luxuries and comforts that I just, I realized that wasn't the stuff that was making me happy. Now, the media, when you see movies, they always make it look like, yeah, these rich people, they've got these amazing lives because of their awesome house and their yachts and their cars and all these material things. And so we think once we have that, our life is going to be perfect. And I see a lot. I've worked with so many people who got to that point, and they came to the same realization that I did. It's like, okay, well, I did all the things, I got the money, but I'm not really that happy because I still want the next thing. And now I've got to make, instead of, $3 million a year, I got to make $7 million a year if I want to have this yacht or this helicopter or whatever. Like it's never ending because as you get things, you just want more. And now it's like I love I literally wake up, and a lot of times I'll just wake up and decide, hey, where do I want to fly today? And I have that freedom, not just because of the financial position that I'm in. I have that freedom because I got rid of all that stuff that was holding me back. And so a lot of times our possessions that we think are so important are things that are stopping us from really enjoying life, in my opinion.
Beautiful. And you mentioned this before, and again, because getting all that material wealth and that financial success, and then reaching it, and then going, but wait, is this it? I'm still not fulfilled. It's because how I look at it, it's you have the financial material, taking care of the body, responsibilities, providing for the family, and then there's the internal place of where that comes from. Does it come from a place of lack and I am not enough? No matter how much we accumulate, like you said, we're always gonna want more because internally we feel we are not enough. But what you mentioned is that when we start from a place of gratitude and already an appreciation that is like abundant, so opposite of I am not enough, then the rest becomes more enjoyable, and you have that freedom, and that fills the happiness and the fulfillment meters. And of course the financial side is still important, but that's, it's like there's these two different areas, and one is really the core of your being, and the other is then the financial of taking care of the body again and responsibilities, etc. So that's so important to make that distinguish and that realization. And even though a lot of people hear that often in the sense that, oh yeah, money doesn't make you happiness, all the gadgets won't bring you happiness. And yet some people still don't believe that. Oh yeah, that's easy for you to say, you got all the gadgets and all the money, right? But how else, so how else can people can people realize that, change that perspective without having to go through accumulating that and then realizing, oh shit, this is not the answer, right?
Well, I think some people, and I was certainly one of them. When we're new to suddenly having money, it's like we've been looking at eyeing all these things for years. It's like, hey, finally I could do that. And I think being a real estate guy, if I were to give one big lesson, it's don't take that money. That money is money that you can go plant and turn that and build more money trees with. And so don't go spend that money. That's a goose that lays a golden egg for you. So use that money to go invest in something and let that something provide you with cash flow, and spend the cash flow, if anything, because then you've still got your assets. You'll still have the money coming in every month. And then if you want the toys, great. But what most people that I know find, the ones that I know that tend to have a lot of material things, they tend to be working a lot of hours. And those people that have learned to, and there's no harm, by the way. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. If you love the nice cars and it makes you happy, great. But I found that I wasn't happy. I had all these things, but guess what? You have the beautiful car, and then your neighbor gets a nicer car, and now all of a sudden you don't like your car anymore. And so you're just on this. You get on this treadmill, and it's really interesting because I remember when I was young, and I'd get to go on vacation maybe once a year. I remember one time I went to Puerto Vallarta, and that was my 1 week for the year. And I remember it was my last day there before I was flying back to Canada, where it was cold and snowy. And of course, Puerto Vallarta was sunny and beautiful. And I was dipping my feet in the ocean. I was just thinking, man, one day I would love to not have to go back to my job. I would love to figure out a way that this is what my life looks like. And when you're I won't say starving, when you're trying to figure out the money thing, and maybe you're not where you want to be yet, at least you have something to look forward to. And so a lot of us will work hard. We'll think, okay, I'm going to work hard because I'm going to get to that goal, and I'm going to buy myself this thing, whatever that thing is. And we work really hard to achieve it. But at least we feel like we have some fulfillment. We have something in our lives that lights us up. We wake up with some sort of purpose. A lot of times when you get to the phase where your money is not a problem anymore, then we lose our identity, because we don't know, well, what is it we're supposed to be doing? We don't need to go to that job anymore. And that's why I think we see a lot of people when they retire, they die not long after, because they don't really feel like they have a purpose. And so I think we need a purpose in life. And I think that's where giving back makes such a big difference. And to me, if you have, and by the way, I just want to make sure nobody here thinks that I'm opposed to money, and we need money. But I'm just saying how you get that money and what you do with that money once you get it will dictate what your life looks like. And to me, as I've had these life lessons along the way, and I've course corrected and done things differently, I've realized, okay, well, there's three things. There's three main aspects of my life. One of them is hanging out with my family. My grandkids are so important to me, and my daughter, and so that's super important to me. But if I did that all day long, as great as that sounds, they'd get sick of me. I'd get sick of them. And I feel like, okay, I need to be around adults for a little bit. So even though it's a great thing, you don't want to, it has to be in balance. And then the second thing is, it might sound, especially if somebody who's watching this is working at a job they don't really like, they might think, man, one day I'm just going to go lie on the beach all day, every day. That's going to be my life, if that's your happy place, or whatever it is for you, golf every day, whatever it is. And then you get there and you can actually do it. And you don't, even though, like, after a few days, it's like, okay, well, I feel like my brain is turning to mush. I feel like I don't really have a purpose. I'm doing the thing that I always dreamed I could do. You don't really appreciate it when you can do it every single day. And so, once again, uh, you have to have it in the right balance. And then the third part of my life is giving back. And I spend a lot of time volunteering and doing humanitarian projects and trying to help other people in different ways. And, if I did that 100% of the time, that wouldn't work either, because sometimes you have to learn how to receive as well. And if you're just giving, a lot of times when I'm giving, if I go to an orphanage, I'm hanging out with kids that their parents are in the court system to see if they're fit to be parents, because they have drug issues, abuse issues, whatever their issues are. They may or may not be fit to be parents, and they may or may not get to be with their kids again. So you're quite often, if you're working with, the aftermath of a hurricane, you're working in very depressing conditions. If you do that 100% of the time, you're going to need some therapy, I think. And so once again, when you have the right balance, like if you're spending the amount of time with your family that you should be, and you're doing some give back stuff in the right amount, but then you're taking time to recharge your batteries and doing the things that make you happy. To me, that's, once you've got that, life you just get in the flow and things magically just fall into place for you. And that's, luckily, I'm very grateful. That's where I feel I've gotten to. And COVID kind of took things took the balance away for a little bit. And I had to rejig things, because all of a sudden I couldn't go and hop on an airplane and volunteer somewhere. And I couldn't just go see my grandkids whenever I wanted. Things changed, and I could feel a difference in me. I felt like, I didn't feel like I had the right balance. And I've had to, I don't like to use the word pivot because everybody's using that word, but I had to pivot and change things around a little bit. Now I'm back to traveling, as you can see. I'm not always there physically with my grandkids, but I love to, chat with them and see them on Zoom. And I'm doing volunteering in different ways. And maybe I can't be there in person, but giving, financial resources, et cetera. And also part of the give back is just being on shows like this and hoping maybe that one person that needs to hear my message today hears. I know some people are going to hear it and they're going to think, I'm not giving up my Lamborghini, and that's fine. If it makes you happy, I'm not in any way opposed to it. But if you're one of those people, you have every toy that you can possibly imagine, like I used to, and you're still not happy, then you got to change something. You got to make something. Something's got to give, or you're going to just get worse and worse and worse.
Cool, beautiful. All right. Just going back to one thing that I wanted to summarize. So for your travel, you have your clothes bag, you have the carry-on, and then you have a whole gadget bag with you. So that's your minimal setup, and you like to refresh the clothing every now and then when you visit places where you have the clothes. So I love that simplicity. And the three things you just mentioned, so they were family, fun, and contribution, giving back, volunteer. So those are your three things that are so important for you, and to have that right balance so that you don't overdose on any one of those areas, right? And I have two questions for you. One, you touched upon purpose. So how do you describe, believe what your purpose is?
Well, I think for myself personally, I think it's really to make a difference on this planet, whether it be within my family, within my friends, within strangers. Sometimes the give back stuff you do, you'll never meet the person who you helped. You'll never hear from them, and that's fine, because you're not doing it for that reason. You're not doing it for recognition. You're not doing it for ego. You're doing it to make a difference. And just like that taxi driver, and I'm sure that in Thailand, they live from not even paycheck to paycheck, meal to meal. And that money would have been a lot more significant to him than it was to me, especially, at that time I was fine. And, but he made a really big lasting impression in my life that went and had this massive ripple effect, and he doesn't know it. He'll never know what impact he had. And some of the people I helped, I'm sure they've made an impact themselves, and it just keeps trickling down. You don't always know, but that to me just warms me up inside. And so I think my main purpose is to teach people what I've learned, share my experiences, which was why I'm grateful that you have me here today, and just show them there's a different way. It's not, some of the stuff that we're taught at a very young age. I don't think it serves us that well. A lot of the stuff we learned in school, schools were built back when they were built. It was basically training people to be on assembly lines, and even before that was even before that. But they've always trained people to be in the workforce, to be employees of some sort. And I remember when I was in school, I was always I originally was planning to be a lawyer. I should say that was my parents' plan for me, was to be a lawyer. And that's a path I was going down. I discovered real estate by mistake. It was a very good mistake for me. But, when I was in school, it's like if your grades are good, you become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever. If your grades aren't good, then you go into a trade and you become a mechanic. I didn't know about this whole entrepreneurial space. Certainly didn't learn anything about how to make my money work for me. That was never taught. And so that's why I like to share my message, because a lot of the stuff just isn't taught anywhere. And a lot of the people, especially in the real estate space, like to dangle that carrot. Oh, you're going to have all this fancy stuff. Give me lots of money, and a week from now you're going to be rich. And I love to teach people how to make money in real estate, but I'm realistic with them, and I tell them there's going to be some work at first, because you have to build the infrastructure. The definition of passive income, which is what I live off of, is doing something one time, getting paid for it over and over and over again. So you have to do that thing the one time. If you don't do the thing the one time, then you can't live off of it the rest of your life. So, and some people, I remember I did a post on Facebook talking about passive income a while back, and somebody commented, passive income is just a myth. It doesn't really exist. And so, think about Michael Jackson. He's dead. He made a lot more money last year as a dead person than I probably did my entire life put together. And so passive income does exist. He's still getting paid royalties for stuff he did when he was alive. Or I should say his estate is getting that money now. But if you don't build that infrastructure, if he would have said, oh, well, I just want to have this fun lifestyle, but I'm not going to go record an album. Well, then you don't have the passive income. And so you record the album, write the book, buy the real estate, the rental properties. If you don't do that one thing that one time, then you got to keep trading your time for money. So the key is to do the thing do the thing that you're destined to do. That's going to create that passive income. But most people aren't taught this. This isn't stuff that's common knowledge. It's not taught in schools. Everybody just teaches you, just work harder, work overtime. And it's like, that doesn't serve you. In my honest opinion, as somebody who used to be there, being the workaholic, I would never go back there. I would never go back. But the funny thing is, when I was there, I was still grateful and I was still happy for the most part. Like I said, I always felt like something was missing, but I was still grateful and I loved what I did. I was passionate about the work I was doing, but I didn't know that there was a better way. And luckily I discovered it. Otherwise, I probably would be too busy to do this call right now with you.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. All right, cool. That's actually segues nicely into wrapping up and reiterating, rephrasing, repeating your message. But before we do that, one more question I'd like to ask you. What are some of the favorite moments that you get to spend and that you have spent with your daughter and your grandkids?
Oh boy! I mean, I've had the pleasure to take them to places like Hawaii and Disney, or actually my first grandson really loved Universal Studios, and I think just seeing things that you love through somebody else's eyes and watching them love it, to me that just lights me up. And so I say that's definitely a part of it, but also just when I get to go back to New Orleans and see some of the people who would not be in New Orleans that got displaced by the storm, and get to see them. Just when you get to see the people that you've helped along the way, or when you get to actually see the impact you've made, that's really very fulfilling. But there's so many. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm grateful for so many different things that I've got going on in my life, and I sometimes have to pinch myself because I don't know how I got here. I didn't wake up one day with this epiphany, oh, I'm going to build this. And I just kind of got, one thing led to another. It all kind of happened organically. One little step added to another step, added to another step. And I'm just grateful that somehow I got here. And now I want to pull other people up here and show them how to do it. And, I get some people that are skeptical, and that's fine. but the people I get to work with, I have some students in a group I call the Inner Circle, where I teach them real estate. They think they're learning real estate investing. I call it personal development disguised as a real estate investing course. But I get to see a lot of their successes, and that's what lights me up: watching other people be successful and watching them win, and especially if they start off skeptical, where it's like, oh no, and they think they have to keep doing the thing that they're doing, and they think they're trapped and stuck. And I think the one good thing that's come out of COVID, and I know that obviously a lot of people are affected adversely, so I'm not trying to in any way make it sound like COVID is a good thing. But the one thing the silver lining that has come from it is people have been forced to, in some cases, to do things differently. Their businesses shut down or they lost their job, and that's unfortunate. But for a lot of people, they're going to end up on a better path, and this is actually a blessing in disguise. And once again, I don't want to trivialize it. I know lots of people have lost loved ones, and some people are thoroughly depressed and going through a really tough transition. I get it. But I honestly believe 5 years from now, people are going to look back and think, man, that actually put me on a way better path than the one that I was on. And I hope that's for everybody that's watching this.
Yeah. So coming back to that, you can't see the forest for the tree. Sometimes you really got to take a step back. 5 years down the line, we see a clear perspective. Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. So with that, just to conclude, for people today, tomorrow, 1,000 years from now, what message would you like to share with them?
I think the message, and because we're in these COVID times, is that, when you have, I think COVID, once again, and I'm always scared to say that some good things have come from this, because I know a lot of people don't see that. But a lot of times when you have something like this in your life, and it might not be a pandemic, it might be something that is affecting you personally. You've just got to keep getting back up. Take the time. Like for COVID, I would have much rather been traveling. For 7 months, I went back to Canada, and I stayed there until the snow started to fall, and I said, I'm not doing winter. And then I flew. I was hanging out in Mexico for quite some time, and then now Costa Rica. But during that downtime, I actually took that time to create courses and do a lot of calls like this, a lot of podcasts, and just get the message out there. So for people that right now, and I know some places are still locked down, believe it or not, for people that are locked down, there's only so much you can watch on Netflix. Take this time to reinvent yourself. Figure out what the 2.0 version of you looks like, and use this time to educate yourself. Use this time productively. And instead of focusing on the negative, be grateful. Hey, I've got this extra time, and now here's this thing I've always wanted to do, and so I'm gonna focus on it. So even 1,000 years from now, I think everybody should focus on what makes them happy, what makes them fulfilled, but figure out the money part, because nothing else. If you don't have that on autopilot, then you don't get to do those other things. You're going to be in that scarcity frame of mind. So focus on abundance, focus on bettering yourself, and then focus on giving back and helping other people.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. All right. This was Story Legacy at Ramiro.me. So, Mike, now we're going to end on a kapow. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
You know how now? Kapow!
Kapow!
All right, cool. We're going to end the broadcast